everybody. Welcome to Daily Tips, Noodles and Shreddin, episode 8. I am Danny, as most of you know, and I'm going to tell you the Marbin tour dates coming up. So today, what date is today? It's a good question. Today is November 5th. In 2 days, November 7th, we're going to play the All Souls Jazz Festival right here in Chicago in the Chopin Theater. And then we go on a little tour. And the tour is going to have these places. We're playing Burlington, Iowa on the 11th, which is Friday, at the Washington. Busted Lift in Dubuque, November 12th. November 13th in Duluth, Barrel Room. November 14th, Lee's Liquor Lounge. November 15th, South Dakota in Red Rooster in Aberdeen. Then Zoo Bar on the 16th in Lincoln, Nebraska. Slowdown, 17th, Omaha, Nebraska. And then Californo's on the 18th in Kansas City, Missouri. And then Des Moines, Iowa on Lefties, that's the 19th. And then we're off till December. And I'm going to Barcelona and then to Israel. All right. So if you guys are in Barcelona and Israel, want to hang out, FB me, we'll hang out. Okay. So today we're going to be talking subject a lot of you have been asking me about. The right hand technique with the guitar. Now, this is probably the stuff I spent the most of amount of time working on. So, a lot of people, I heard somebody tell me really early on with guitar that this is how much you know. This is how much you know, and this is how good you are. And I really think there's something to it. Right hand, that's the drummer, that's the rhythm, it's everything. So there are several ways of holding the pick that really determine what kind of sound you're going to get. And I switch between two mainly. So the main way is basically this kind of grip. Let me show you. So this grip, if you look at the space inside here, kind of makes a little bit of an O, like a elliptical kind of sideways zero, you know, and that's number one. And number two, and really it consists of the side of the index finger and the thumb, and you close and the pick points down. Now when you pick like this, really the thumb kind of you want to keep the pick completely parallel to the string, okay? So it just 90 degrees. And then what happens when you play, you just go through the string and kind of pluck it. Now, sometimes you do play with an angle forward. There's a forward slant like this. So, especially with gypsy music, I do a lot of gypsy playing. So with the gypsy playing, the whole idea is that you have this kind of angle right here with your wrist. Okay? And then you dig into the string with what they call a rest stroke. You see it's a rotation of this bone combined with a loose wrist. And then the upstroke is the opposite of that. Okay? That's the technique you use to play like Django. And it gives you a lot of volume. It's really, really meant for acoustic playing. I had actually the experience that night we played the show a night before Pat Martino. Some of you saw that picture. And after that, there was a jazz jam. And I was playing electric in that jam. And with the thing that I do probably the least, which is like just kind of playing an electric guitar through a clean amp. I wasn't playing through my own amp in a straight ahead jazz setting. And my technique really isn't so geared towards that. I can play jazz on acoustic really well or with a lot of gain. And I'm going to get into the way you should play in that kind of situation in a minute. But the important thing to understand is that the way you set your sound through the amp and through the guitar really determines what kind of technique you should be using. So this kind of bent wrist, wide motion technique is really great for playing gypsy music and getting a lot of sound out of the instrument and playing acoustic music. So, but you can also play wrist down, this is the way I think most guitar players play. And because with the electric guitar, muting is much bigger of an issue than with the acoustic. Because, with acoustic, some of the finger noise and some of the sympathetic vibration of the guitar gets kind of swallowed by other instruments, and you can really hear the attacks, but you don't really have to worry about muting. With electric guitar, it's a little bit different. So when I play the Marbin stuff, most of my playing is down, kind of wrist down with this kind of grip. The problem with this is that you get kind of a plinky sound. Especially when it's clean. When it's distorted and when there's a lot of sustain and compression coming from the amp, you get away with more. But you get kind of a bright sound that might be not so pleasant. Now, George Benson and Pat Metheny and people like that play with, they both hold the pick a little bit differently, but they both get the same kind of thing to thicken up their sound through the right hand. And this is the thing, I've seen jazz people spend $3,000 on a guitar when really what they're looking for is a different way of holding their pick to get the thick sound. And this, you see the opening right here, if you shape it from kind of an O to a D, see that D? Coming from basically holding the pick flesh to flesh, with the flesh of the index finger as opposed to the side of the index finger. Now, if I do that and then put the pick back to the guitar, okay? And then try to play with my thumb parallel to the strings, the pick automatically lands at a 45 upwards angle with the string. And that angle gives me a thicker sound. I'll demonstrate. I'll play You Are My Sunshine, okay? So this is You Are My Sunshine with normal grip. This is with this grip. Hear the difference in like how rounded the attacks are? Again, normal. Now I'm gonna switch. I think both Metheny and Benson were really listening to Wes Montgomery, who played with his thumb. And the types of sounds he was getting, that kind of thing, that kind of thing. All those kind of sounds, if you play with a straight pick, it sounds so strange. Alright? So plinky. To me, it's very bright. Now, if I do the side thing like Benson, check out the difference in sound. So you really get a jazzier sound. Now, this pick is 2 millimeters. Once you turn it to the side, to me, this is too thick to get the right sound with. So 2 millimeters sound kind of oafy. So I'm going to show you what a medium Fender, which is, I think, around 1, sounds like. About half as thick, but with the angle. To me, that's the sound. it's like stringy in the right way. So to me, that sounds about right for that kind of style. But the motion with the angle is actually kind of an not so exaggerated version of the same motion that the gypsy picking comes from. Obviously, not with the the gypsy picking has that extreme downstroke, rest, and then the up that's kind of a reversal of that. This one, with this angle, it's still a rotation of the forearm bone. You see, so much of guitar playing nowadays is just wrist. And to me, you're not really getting a lot of the acoustic color of the guitar when you try to do that. You know what I mean? It's like you're losing a little bit of the characteristic people might call balls. You're losing balls the smaller your gesture is. But this is all geared to a certain kind of playing, okay? And that certain kind of playing is lots of headroom. Let me explain the idea of clean headroom, okay? Imagine your sound, your pure sound, like water. And then imagine your sound through the amp like water through a pipe. Headroom is the air between the water and the top of the pipe, okay? When you hit the string, what you're doing is you're making the water rise. You're pushing more water through the hose, right? So a clean sound with lots of headroom, it means that like when you play hard, the water goes up, but it's nowhere near the top, okay? That's a jazz sound. That's a classical guitar sound. When the amp just basically serves as like this really open kind of space, and you have all the room in the world to kind of push your sound up and down with your body. That's why it's really important. And the cleaner your sound is, the more you can hear the detail of your technique. So when you're playing with a really pure sound and you're trying to play jazz, you really get to shape your sound. Now, to me, there's three styles of sounds with guitar, okay? There's headroom and just playing clean. Then there's overdriven, like Derek Trucks, Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, where the water is close to the top of the pipe, and if you hit the guitar hard, you get to the top. What happens at the top? The sound gets compressed, distorted, right? So you have these guitar sounds that are on the verge of distortion, that are overdriven. That's the whole idea. And now you get into this different sphere. And in this sphere, you have more sustain. And what you do with your right hand still matters, but matters less. Because everything is exaggerated and you're playing with a slightly more compressed sound. Compressed just means that you take the top and bottom and squeeze them a little bit. And then the third style of playing is high gain, meaning the water is solidly shooting through the pipe. You know, it's kind of beaming, right? And then you get into like Steve Vai, Malmsteen, Scott Henderson most of the time, Alan Holdsworth. And to me, the bad symptom of that thing is that it shrinks the sound. That's why you have to compensate with delay. Okay, delay really is the thing that sells it and makes it sound, kind of brings it back to normal. It makes it not sound tiny. So this is not a good instrument to demonstrate sound number 2 and 3, so I'm switching to Strat. All right. I wish I had transitional music, but I don't, so you're just going to have to bear with me for a sec. All right. So I'm back. Now, this is my overdriven sound. So you can still kind of hear the note relatively cleanly, but I have more sustain. The note doesn't die out. Now, in this style of playing, I have sustain. I can really play a couple of notes per attack. Okay, now, for me, the attack at this point becomes a little more aggressive, okay? So I don't want to pick every note. It's going to sound like a machine gun if I do. So to me, the technique now can open itself up to more legato playing once you get this kind of guitar sound. So let me demonstrate some of that. So the way I play in Marbin most of the time is always with gain. I barely ever play clean, or so I don't think I ever solo clean. But so with this overdriven sound, so my motion is wrist down, and I do a lot more legato kind of stuff. And I do a lot more stuff when I'm playing maybe like once and then getting 4 notes out of my... So people that play like that all the time are like Schofield. You know what I'm... Think about picking like a saxophone player thinks about tonguing. You know, it gives an attack, but you can ride that attack and get a few notes on it. You know what I mean? So here it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You know? So you really... So picking really becomes something that sets the string in motion. It's more like an oscillating machine for the left hand in this kind of style, much more than the clean sound where you're really shaping the sound with your right hand. Because you can hear it less, really. That's the main reason. So to me, when you get into these kind of sounds, I play wrist down for lines most of the time. Unless I'm trying to dig in and get like a Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of thing, where it's like the gypsy technique. And then I get this kind of thing. Or when I'm comping, I'm playing wrist up. Like the funk. So that's the technique for that kind of thing. Now, the next, that's the overdriven kind of thing. You can also get like, obviously, kind of, that's another thing I do a lot, sliding around and adding the articulation. But, and you do get to shape your attack like the clean sound, but it's kind of like this world in between the high gain world and the clean world. Now, when we get to the high gain world, check this out. So, here's my sound. To me, it's a little bit ugly like that. I like to add delay to it. To me, that's the sound. Like, hear those repeats? Now, once I get this sound, I can really play with the technique that I use like in Marbin for all the lead kind of stuff, which is all my fast lines. I'm really getting kind of close to the strings and muting with my left hand most of the time. And then when I add the right hand, and kind of articulate all the stuff, it's to get the machine gun kind of thing. I still play with my wrist up for some of the things. All these kind of, fast tremolo-y kind of things. But the technique is kind of close to the strings. And these things are just a ton of legato, and really the sound you're getting from your right hand doesn't really matter in the way that it matters with less gain. So the more gain, the more you're shrinking your dynamic range, and at the same time the more you're making it a non-issue. Now, for those of you who play jazz or play classical or play, not classical, but like, who go for a clean sound with electric, that angle thing, the 45 degrees up, the Benson thing is really the way to go, because you really get to shape your sound. If you think about what's happening to the attack, imagine it through an oscilloscope or like Pro Tools when you see the waveform. On guitar, you have an attack. It looks like this, and then it stabilizes into a steady kind of pitch, right? What you're doing is, instead of plucking the string, pushing it down and having it kind of violently bounce back up, you're brushing the string. And brushing it gets a rounder attack that kind of blends into the sustained note more. So yeah, write me if you have any questions. Come catch a Marbin show. And hopefully this was informative, and I'll see you guys soon.